Spring in Santa Rosa, California brought gentle sunlight that filtered through the blooming lavender fields, carrying a soft, fragrant breeze. But in the garden behind St. Clair's Church, a storm of heartache raged under the clear sky. Delilah Moore, 29 years old, sat alone in her wheelchair, dressed in a white wedding gown with delicate lace sleeves and her hair pinned up with baby's breath flowers. The garden had been prepared for her ceremony, scattered with white rose petals that now seemed like mocking confetti. She clutched the armrests of her chair, her hands trembling as sobs escaped her chest. The wedding had not happened. Her fiancé, Grant Whitman, had left 30 minutes before the vows, sending a single text. "I'm sorry. I can't go through with this." Delilah's mind replayed the past year in fragments. Less than 12 months ago, a car accident had stolen her ability to walk. Grant had promised to stand by her, swearing their love would conquer everything. He had even helped pick out this gown, imagining her gliding down the aisle, but today, in the dress he had chosen, she was abandoned. She wiped her tears, feeling the weight of isolation crush her. The guests had dispersed awkwardly, leaving whispers of pity in their wake. Delilah stared at the empty altar, questioning if her disability had made her unlovable. Footsteps approached from the far side of the garden. A tall man with sun-kissed skin emerged, wearing a rumpled shirt and faded jeans. Beside him was a girl about 6 years old, holding a clumsily wrapped gift box. He stopped when he saw Delilah, his deep-set eyes taking in the scene without immediate reaction. No pity, no intrusion, just quiet observation. Delilah turned away, hastily drying her face. "I'm sorry. I didn't think anyone would see me like this." The man stepped closer, his voice steady and low. "I'm Marcus Reed. My daughter Lila has a birthday party for a classmate in the hall inside. We took the wrong path." The little girl tugged at his hand, her eyes wide. "Daddy, she's so sad. Is she a princess?" Delilah managed a weak laugh through her tears. "Thank you. But no, today I'm not a princess at all." "Looks like today didn't go as planned," Marcus said softly, kneeling slightly to meet her level. Delilah nodded, her eyes reddening again. "He left me because of this." She gestured to her wheelchair. "Because I'll never walk down the aisle like other brides." Marcus held her gaze, his expression unchanging. "I don't know your name, but I do know one thing. If he left because of that, maybe he wasn't worth staying for in the first place." Delilah looked at him, surprised by the simplicity of his words. For a moment, the garden felt less empty. Lila smiled shyly, and Marcus stood there, offering no more than his presence, but it was enough to pierce the fog of her despair. 3 days after the shattered wedding, Delilah sat in her small apartment overlooking the rolling hills of Santa Rosa, staring at her phone. The room was quiet, filled with unpacked boxes of wedding favors she hadn't had the heart to throw away. Her wheelchair was positioned by the window where the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the wooden floor. The pain from that day in the garden lingered like a bruise, but the memory of Marcus and Lila's unexpected kindness had softened its edges just a little. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hope you're feeling a bit better. My daughter hasn't stopped talking about the sad princess. Marcus." Delilah's lips curved into a faint smile, the first genuine one since Grant's text. Amid the flood of sympathetic calls and messages from family and friends full of awkward pity and empty reassurances, this one felt different. It was simple, unassuming, without the weight of obligation. She typed back, "Still not okay, but thank you and Lila for staying that day." The conversation started slowly, like tentative steps on uneven ground. Marcus shared glimpses of his life without prompting. He was 35, a handyman who fixed leaky roofs and creaky doors for neighbors in the quieter suburbs of Santa Rosa. He'd once been a structural engineer working on bridges and buildings in San Francisco, but everything changed 2 years ago when his wife Emily died from a sudden heart complication. "I quit the big jobs," he wrote one evening. "Couldn't be away from Lila. She's all I have left of Emily." Delilah found herself opening up in return. She told him about her recovery, the endless physical therapy sessions that left her exhausted and frustrated, the way she had adapted her career from hands-on veterinary work to online teaching about animal care. "I used to run a clinic," she messaged during a late-night exchange. "Loved being with the animals, seeing them heal. Now I just talk about it from behind a screen. Feels like half a life." Marcus's responses were thoughtful, never rushing to console or advise. "Half a life is still worth living," he replied. "Lila teaches me that every day. She's obsessed with drawing now, says it helps her remember her mom." One afternoon, a photo arrived, a child's crayon sketch of a woman in a flowing dress sitting in a chair with wheels surrounded by flowers. Underneath, in wobbly letters, "Princess Delilah needs to be happy again." Delilah's eyes welled up as she traced the lines with her finger. It wasn't pity in the drawing, it was pure, innocent hope. "Thank you for sharing this," she texted back. "It's the kindest thing anyone's done for me lately." From there, the messages flowed more easily. Marcus described simple routines, dropping Lila off at school where she chattered about her friends, evenings spent reading bedtime stories or fixing toys with duct tape and patience. He admitted the loneliness that crept in after Emily's death, the quiet house, the empty side of the bed, but how fatherhood had forced him to keep going. "Some days, it's just about making her smile," he wrote. "That gets me through." Delilah shared her own vulnerabilities, the stares from strangers when she wheeled through town, the well-meaning but hurtful comments from acquaintances about getting back out there. She confessed how Grant's abandonment had shattered her trust, making her question if anyone could see past her wheelchair. "I thought he loved me enough," she typed one rainy night. "Turns out love has conditions." Marcus's reply came quickly. "Real love doesn't. Emily taught me that. She stuck with me through my worst days before she got sick." As the weeks passed, Delilah noticed how these exchanges became a lifeline. They weren't flirtatious or forced. They were honest conversations between two people who had known loss. Marcus never pried about her accident, and she didn't push him on his grief. Instead, they traded recipes as simple grilled cheese for Lila, her tips on baking dog treats for her online classes, or shared funny anecdotes like Lila's attempt to fix a broken doll with super glue resulting in a sticky mess. For the first time since the accident, Delilah felt seen not as a victim or a burden, but as someone whose words mattered. The garden encounter, once a painful memory, now felt like the start of something unexpected. She didn't know where it would lead, but in the quiet glow of her phone screen it was a spark of light in the darkness. In a sun-dappled afternoon in May, Marcus sent Delilah a message that shifted their connection from words on a screen to something more tangible. "Lila's school is having an art show this weekend. She'd love it if the princess came to see her drawing. No pressure." Delilah stared at the invitation, her fingers hovering over the reply. The thought of venturing out, of being seen in her wheelchair among families and children, stirred a familiar knot of anxiety. But The memory of Lila's sketch and Marcus's steady kindness won out. She typed back, "I'd be honored." What time? She arrived at the elementary school in Santa Rosa wearing a light blue blouse that matched the clear sky, her hair falling loosely over her shoulders. The parking lot buzzed with parents and kids, and Delilah navigated the path carefully, her heart pounding. Marcus spotted her first, waving from the entrance, with Lila bouncing beside him. "You made it," he said, his smile warm and genuine as he fell into step beside her wheelchair. Lila rushed forward, wrapping her small arms around Delilah in a hug. "You're here. Come see my picture. I made one just for you." The gymnasium had been transformed into a colorful gallery with children's artwork taped to every wall. Lila led them to her section, pointing proudly at a crayon masterpiece, 3 figures, in a flower-filled garden, a woman in a wheeled chair with long hair, a tall man with a toolbox, and a little girl holding hands between them. All 3 wore bright smiles under a rainbow sky. Delilah's breath caught. "Is this us?" Lila nodded enthusiastically. "It's my family dream. You, me, and Daddy in the garden where we met you." Marcus cleared his throat, a faint flush on his cheeks. "She insisted on drawing it that way. Kids have big imaginations." Delilah traced the figures with her eyes, a warmth spreading through her chest. "It's beautiful, Lila. Thank you." After the show, they lingered in the schoolyard sharing ice cream cones from a nearby vendor. Lila chattered about her favorite colors and school friends while Marcus and Delilah exchanged quiet glances. It was effortless, unforced, a far cry from the scripted dates Delilah had endured before her accident. From that day, their meetings grew more frequent, weaving into the rhythm of their lives. Marcus suggested a picnic at a nearby park one weekend, choosing a spot with smooth paths and shaded benches. They spread out a blanket under an oak tree, unpacking sandwiches and fruit. Lila played nearby, chasing butterflies, while Delilah and Marcus talked about everything and nothing. The quirky habits of her online students, his latest repair job on an old Victorian house in town. One evening, Delilah mentioned a stray puppy she had seen listed at the local animal shelter. "I wish I could take him in, but with my setup..." Her voice trailed off. The next day, Marcus arrived at her apartment with supplies, a small crate, bowls, and toys. "Thought we could check him out together. Lila's already named him Scout in case you say yes." They adopted the scruffy terrier mix that afternoon. Caring for Scout became a shared ritual, walks in the park where Marcus pushed Delilah's chair when the terrain got rough, for quiet evenings at her place teaching the pup tricks. Delilah laughed more freely, her hands steady as she brushed Scout's fur, feeling a sense of purpose return. Marcus never made a fuss about her wheelchair. He anticipated needs without fanfare, lowering a picnic table, clearing a path through leaves, or simply sitting at her level during conversations. It wasn't pity. It was respect born from his own experiences of loss and adaptation. Delilah found herself drawn to him in ways she hadn't expected. One Saturday morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the curtains of Delilah's apartment, her phone vibrated on the nightstand. She reached for it, expecting a routine check-in from a friend or family member. Instead, it was Marcus. "I want you to come back to St. Clair's church with me. No wedding dress, no rings, just me. And something I need to say." Delilah's heart skipped a beat. The church garden was etched in her memory as the site of her deepest humiliation. The petals, the empty altar, Grant's abandonment. Returning there felt like reopening a wound that had only just begun to scar. She stared at the message, her fingers tracing the edge of her wheelchair absent-mindedly. Part of her wanted to decline to protect the fragile peace she had built through their conversations and outings. But another part, the one that had grown fond of Marcus's quiet strength and Lila's infectious joy, urged her forward. After a long pause, she replied, "Okay, to turn it into something better." He gestured for her to follow him deeper into the garden away from the church's shadow. Lila looked up briefly, waving with a grin before returning to her book. Marcus stopped at a quiet spot surrounded by lavender bushes, their fragrance mingling with the earthy scent of soil. He sat on the low stone wall, facing Delilah directly. "Delilah," he began, his hands clasped together as if steadying himself. "I'm not a prince in a fairy tale. I've made mistakes, big ones. I walked away from a stable career after Emily died because I couldn't balance it with being there for Lila. Some days I still wonder if I'm enough for her." Delilah listened, her own nerves settling as she saw the vulnerability in his eyes, a mirror to her own. "But meeting you that day," he continued, "changed something in me. You were in pain, yet there was this strength in you, this quiet fire. It reminded me that life doesn't end with loss. It evolves. I've watched you rebuild, teaching your classes, caring for Scout, laughing with Lila. You're not defined by what happened to you. You're more than that." He paused, reaching into his pocket for a small envelope. "I didn't bring flowers or grand gestures. That's not us. But I brought this." Before he could hand it over, Lila scampered over her book, forgotten. She held out a folded piece of paper, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "This is for you, Delilah. From me and Daddy." Delilah took it, unfolding the note with careful fingers. In childish scrawl, accompanied by a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, "Will you be my mommy?" Tears sprang to Delilah's eyes, blurring the words. She looked up at Lila, then at Marcus, who nodded gently. "She's been asking about you every day," he said. "And honestly, so have I." The garden seemed to hold its breath. Delilah wiped her cheek, a sob turning into a soft laugh. "I didn't expect this. Not here, not now." Marcus leaned forward, his hand covering hers on the wheelchair's armrest. "I fell for you slowly, Delilah. Not because I wanted to fix anything, but because being around you makes me better, makes us better. If you'll have us, I want to be the one who stays through the hard days, the therapy sessions, the quiet nights. Not as a hero, just as me." Delilah squeezed his hand, her voice steady despite the tears. "I've been scared, Marcus. Scared no one would see past this chair. But you do. You always have. And Lila, she's already in my heart." She turned to the girl, pulling her into a gentle hug. "Yes, sweetheart. I'd love to be your mommy." Lila squealed with delight, wrapping her arms around both of them. Marcus joined the embrace, his forehead resting against Delilah's. In that moment, the garden transformed from a place of heartbreak to one of new beginnings. The sun warmed their backs, and for the first time Delilah felt the weight of her past lift, replaced by the promise of a shared future. 1 year later, the garden behind St. Clair's Church bloomed with the same vibrant life as before, but the air carried a different weight, peaceful, unburdened by past shadows. The California sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm amber glow over the lavender and roses. Delilah arrived in a simple cream-colored dress that flowed softly around her, her hair loose and adorned with the few wildflowers she and Lila had picked that morning. No elaborate veil, no train of silk, just her radiant and her quiet strength. Marcus waited at the entrance to the garden, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks, his hands in his pockets as he watched her approach. A small gathering of close friends and family stood nearby, but this wasn't a spectacle. There were no photographers, no towering floral arches, only a few chairs arranged in a semicircle and a simple wooden arch woven with vines. As Delilah wheeled closer, Marcus stepped forward, his eyes locking onto hers with the same steady gaze that had first drawn her in. He knelt slightly, taking her hands in his. Lila, now 7, and beaming in a sundress dotted with daisies, stood beside them, clutching a bouquet of hand-picked blooms. The officiant, a family friend, kept the ceremony brief. There were no scripted vows filled with poetic promises. Instead, Marcus spoke first, his voice low and sincere, meant only for her. Delilah, you once thought this garden marked the end of something the day you were left behind. But to me, it's where I first saw the bravest woman I've ever known. You didn't just survive. You thrived, building a life full of purpose and love. He squeezed her hands gently. Today I'm not marrying you in the traditional sense. I'm choosing you every morning, every challenge, every quiet moment. Through the therapy sessions, the late nights with Scout, the laughter with Lila. I choose to build with you, not despite anything, but because of everything you are. Delilah's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her smile was steady. She looked at him, then at Lila, who watched with wide-eyed wonder. Marcus, after that day here, I thought no one would ever stay. I built walls around my heart, convinced love came with conditions. But you didn't see barriers, you saw me. You showed up not to fix or pity, but to share the load. She turned her gaze fully to him. I choose you too. Not because you rescued me from pain, but because you walked through it with me. Every repair job you take, every story you read to Lila, every time you make me laugh, you've shown me love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up day after day. Lila couldn't contain her excitement any longer. She darted forward, wrapping her arms around both of them. Now, I have a mommy and daddy forever, she exclaimed, her voice muffled against Delilah's dress. The officiant pronounced them bound in marriage with a gentle smile, and the small group clapped softly. Marcus leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to Delilah's lips, one filled with the quiet promise of a shared future. As they pulled apart, Lila tugged at their hands, leading them to a nearby table set with homemade cake and fresh fruit. The afternoon unfolded simply. Friends shared stories, laughter echoed through the garden, and Scout romped playfully at their feet. Delilah and Marcus sat together, watching Lila chase butterflies among the flowers. This feels right, Delilah whispered, resting her head on his shoulder. No drama, no expectations, just us. Marcus nodded, his arm around her. That's all we need. The evening, in the months that followed, their life settled into a comfortable rhythm in Marcus's cozy home on the outskirts of Santa Rosa. Delilah continued her online veterinary classes, her confidence growing as students praised her insights. She even started volunteering at a local animal rescue, adapting tools to work from her chair. Marcus balanced his handyman jobs with family time, often bringing Lila along to help with safe tasks like painting fences. Challenges arose. Delilah's therapy sessions remained grueling, and Marcus occasionally wrestled with memories of Emily, but they faced them together. Evenings were spent cooking simple meals, reading to Lila, or walking Scout under the stars. Delilah discovered joys she thought lost, teaching Lila to care for animals, sharing quiet conversations with Marcus about dreams for the future. The garden at St. Clair's, once a symbol of heartbreak, became their special place. They returned often for picnics, turning it into a haven of new memories. Lila's drawings now filled the walls at home, depicting their family in endless adventures. In the end, it wasn't a fairy tale of dramatic rescues or perfect endings. It was three people, Delilah Marcus and Lila, choosing each other every day, finding completeness in the ordinary. The woman who had been left behind had become the heart of a family, proving that love, when true, didn't demand perfection. It simply endured